Here we are. Hi. We're just trying something new, just having a little conversation because my good friends Jonna and Chucky are helping me come up with ways to continue to try to connect and raise more awareness of the Tuesday live stream that we've been doing with the band from this porch. So hi everybody, good evening, happy Sunday. Is anybody there? I'm looking at my computer in case there's anything to say or ask.
Well, Sarah, let's talk a little bit about the live streaming.
Okay, so I live out here on my porch. I do so much work. And I mean, when I get to like sit and work on songs or deal with my like admin things of life, I love to be on this porch. And we've been playing from the front yard on Tuesdays, socially distanced bandmates. We started with me just sitting on the swing and playing, and now it's kind of become more of a like stand up and play a real gig thing on Tuesdays and Johnny Medina is helping us with sound. So now I have all these neighbors and people who have noticed that this thing is happening come by, and they'll ask, okay, is it, where's the music? When's it happening again? And it's becoming a nice thing in the neighborhood as well as hopefully whoever online we're connecting with, which seems like kind of a lot of people. I wish y'all could see the trail. This very good-looking couple is riding by on their bikes, and I have music blasting. I love it when people blast music from their bicycles. It happens a lot in Austin.
It's cool.
Is anybody there? Hey! Okay, hi. People are there.
You do? You have a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your band members? We'd like to get to know all of them. We've been seeing them on live stream, and we'd like to hear a little bit about them. Maybe you want to tell us?
Who should I talk about first?
Maybe Mitch
Watkins. I feel like I should have them here and do that, like have a conversation with them, but...
I mean, I think that's the idea in the future.
Maybe.
We start this off just kind of a chat with Sarah, and then in the future you start bringing some other people on board.
Okay, well, I can tell y'all, this swing has had so many amazing conversations with so many amazing people. And that's why it's like truly my spiritual center and why I like to be here. And even now that we've kind of loosened things and we can have socially distanced outdoor visits, I've had several friends come by and sit in a chair nearby but far enough away and have talks recently. And it's just the fabric of life for me, like learning from each other and reflecting and bouncing off of each other's experiences and bearing witness and listening and also sharing deeply. It's what we do. It's how we connect, or it's a way that I really love to connect. Figuring it out, the journey, trying to help each other do the lessons as best we can. Okay, so Mitch Watkins. In 1999, I moved back to Austin. I had been living in Boston for college, and then I went to London for a year and a half. And I had graduated from college early, a year early, so I was 23 when I moved back to Austin. And I was playing pretty right away at the Ritz every Friday night, doing jazz, but trying to write songs because I knew I needed to write some songs if I wanted to have the career that I was hoping to have. And so I had a handful of songs with me from when I lived in London and was always working on more. And they were mostly terrible songs, really bad. But I was so enchanted with this record that Mitch and Abra Moore made, the one that had the 4-leaf clover song, that I wrote to him and mailed. It might have even been a tape. What would it have been in 99? Would it have been a CD?
Might have been a CD by then.
But it might have been a tape. And of demos. And said, I just have a feeling that at some point we're meant to work together. And this would have been 2000 by the time I sent him that letter. And he called my landline and thanked me for the letter, and we had a really good conversation. He was really kind and enthusiastic and just said, keep writing, keep in touch, let me know. And I never got in touch again until 2015.
Oh, my.
And what was oh, my incense is so strong here. I'm trying to keep the mosquitoes away.
By the way, we do have a comment.
Okay.
Mr. Craig Brockman asking if that's a Beach
That's
Boys.
a Beach Boys record in the background. Yeah, I brought the record player back out. It's a good one.
Why the Beach Boys?
Oh, I felt it. I was like, which ones? Because I've been going down the list of the records, and then when I listen, I put it at the other end, But
Right.
I randomly pull, and I have a marker of like what I have listened to during the quarantine. And Craig, there were 2 Beach Boys records in that sleeve, and it's not a double album. So I just solved one of the record without a sleeve versus sleeve without a record situations that's going on.
That kind of is interesting. Talk a little bit about your musical influences. I mean,
Okay, I will, but I was going to tell you about
Oh.
Mitch real quick.
Okay, finish with Mitch.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, because this is kind of an amazing story. Is my dress see-through? I mean,
You're fine.
it is see-through, but I have a slip. So,
Nothing to see. Nothing
in
to see.
2015, when Slim had cancer and he was in treatment, and he would be able to play some of our shows and then not, and then come back and play and then not, and it was such a hard time, and it was so hard to for Slim to be that sick, and we were still playing all the time in Jitterbug Vipers, and we played every Friday at Sea Boys, and but several times a week, and we would just find somebody to play for Slim if he couldn't. And it was usually Connor Forsyth or Greg Harkins or Wilson Marks, different people, but it was one of these Fridays, I think it was February of 2015, that we just couldn't find anybody to, the rest of the band, we didn't rehearse, we knew what we wanted to do, as long as they could kind of read our charts and just throw in and show up, like throw and go, we'd get through it. Mm-hmm. And we just went down the list of anyone and everyone who'd ever played with us, and no one was available. And I thought, well, I'm going to ask Mitch. I know that obviously, like, the money we were making happy hours at Sea Boys is not going to be the reason he says yes, but maybe he'll take pity on us, because this is a really hard time, and I know he's quite fond of Slim. And so, for the first time in like 15 years after that letter I wrote, I asked him to play, and he agreed to meet us at Sea Boys and play. Now, the night before, we had played at Elephant Room, and we had a routine with Francie Mojo that when Slim was well, he would carry her stuff. He would carry her bass down. He would set everything up for her. He always carried her gear. She would go and get the car. She'd pull around. He'd come up curbside, load it all in, and they'd take off, usually quite quickly after the gig. So on this Thursday, Masumi was not available. She had a bigger, like a tapestry gig or something. So we did Thursday and Friday night with Chris Trafton on drums instead of Masumi. So we carry everything up on this Thursday after happy hour to the curb, and we wait for Mojo, and she just never came back. And bless her heart, she had a lot going on, and she just forgot and left without her instrument and drove straight home. And I didn't have a car. Masumi was on that gig. I don't know, whatever. Chris was. Neither of us had a car that could fit the bass in it. And so what we decided was we would lock it in the closet at the storeroom at the Elephant Room. And Chris said, I will pick up the bass on the way here tomorrow to come to do our gig at the Sea Boys. And I said, like I can with Chris, because we're good friends and I can shoot really straight with him. I said, Chris, it takes you 15 minutes longer to get to the gig than you have accepted in your heart. And by the time you do finally accept that as fact, coming from Round Rock, you're going to need to add another 15 minutes. But every single time you fill in for Masumi, you show up completely surprised and amazed, at how long it took you to get here. And you're always late. So we had that talk, and he's like, got it. Okay. He's like, I'll leave extra early because I'm going to come get Mojo's bass, and I will bring the bass to Seaboys tomorrow. So we show up at Seaboys. Mitch is going to play with us for the first time. And there's this line down the street because somebody we'd never heard of was going to play after us. Some guy named Leon Bridges.
Oh, my.
He was blowing up. Like, nobody knew who he were. We didn't know who he was yet, but he was blowing up. And we were playing happy hour, and he was going to play immediately after us. And so they ended up emptying it after happy hour, making everybody line up again, and he had to have a ticket, and they wouldn't even let us stay to hear him because it was so very, very sold out. It was like a fire code thing. But everyone who was trying to get their good spot filled every inch of Seaboys for our happy hour show.
Nice.
And Mitch was there, and we have the books, and Mojo's waiting for Chris to show up with her bass. Chris showed up 15 minutes late for the gig, and I said, "Where's the bass?" And he said, "There's a house kit." Like the bass drum. I'm like, "No, the bass," and he had forgotten. And so we're already 15 minutes late. It's a sold out, packed house. We've never played with Mitch before. We don't have a bass. And Chris runs back to Elephant Room to get the bass, which is just down Congress. And he comes back really late and says, the person who has the key to that storeroom at the Elephant Room doesn't get there until 8.
Oh, my.
And so, if we had been like throw in and go, and Chris or Masumi and Mojo could like show Mitch what we meant by these charts of our like greatest hits, like what we would have wanted to play to show off to such a crowd, Mitch would have totally been able to hang. But for me to stand there alone on stage with Mitch and try to create this Jitterbug Viper thing and do it with him reading charts of songs he's never heard, it wasn't going to happen. So we're going through the book reading, like, it wasn't quite as bad as doing, like, All of Me, but it was bad. Like, we were having to play the most standard jazz covers and, maybe a blues cover. It was so bad.
But you guys pulled it off.
Well,
I'm sure it sounded great.
Mitch, I was like, at one point I looked at him and he was like, man, the cards are really stacked against you. Like one thing after another just kept happening. And I was like, please don't hate us. And
Clearly he doesn't now.
And
right?
So then we were playing with no bass but drums. And still, like, none of our cool songs.
Oh, my.
And then I'm, like, walking. I see people I know. I'm like, we need a bass. I kept stepping off to the side of like, doesn't so-and-so live a block from here? We need a bass. And finally, I went
Only
up.
in Austin can you just get a bass. Hey, anybody got a bass? Somebody walking by.
Definitely one of those situations where Masumi would have been like, stoners, I'm so sick of stoners, So I went and I said something because Leon's band was very politely standing on the side watching this entire thing.
Oh my,
and
so you had them.
I asked them, like, do y'all have a bass we could use? He's like, I got an electric bass. And Mojo goes, I played an electric bass once at a party.
Oh,
So
oh my gosh.
she used it and she sat on the amp and she like figured it out. And the last hour of our 2-hour gig was actually pretty great. I mean, people would definitely have gotten the idea of like what we were about, even though this was such a debacle. And I wrote to Mitch the next day and was like, please don't hate us. I mean, this is a really difficult time, but we're trying to hold it together. And he's like, talk about grace under pressure. And like, he was really
So gracious.
complimentary. Like, wow, Sarah. I'm like, oh, I've been trained for that my whole life as far as like staying calm, cool, and collected in a crisis.
It was like a bonding experience for you
so
guys,
we were
right?
thrown into the fire together.
That's awesome.
And he did kind of have some like respect for like, well, this girl can handle just about anything,
That's good. Good for band members to feel that way about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, one thing that you were gonna talk about is talk a little bit about this promotion that you're gonna be doing for the next couple live streams for the shows on Tuesday evening.
Okay, so we're trying to keep people who've been watching interested and get new viewers because we really, really want to continue to connect as much as we can. So here's our idea. This week and next week for the live stream on Tuesday, anyone who either shares the live stream or donates, we'll just put your name in a hat, or you can have your name in the hat twice if you share and donate. And 2 winners we'll draw, a little raffle. And the prizes we've come up with so far are Mitch has offered to teach a guitar lesson through like Zoom or Skype.
Sweet.
So you can choose between these 4 things. A guitar lesson with Mitch, a voice lesson with me. These are all remote for now. Or a songwriting session with me, meaning that I will either help you, coach you in songwriting, listen to your ideas, or try to write with you. I'm also open to doing that on the porch if we're at a distance, especially if you play an instrument. But even if you don't, we can figure it out. I don't play an instrument. And then the 4th option is to just, if you win, you can come sit on the porch with me, and I will unofficially life coach.
You'll be one of the members that has come to sit on this porch.
You will be one of the long list of amazing humans who has had a wonderful, meaningful conversation on this porch.
Have a drink.
Oh yeah, I'll give you
Talk
drinks
about
too. Yeah.
Life. Awesome.
Talk about life. So, hopefully maybe that'll catch on.
We'll post something on your page.
Maybe since I told such a long story, I can tell one about each band member each time, like not
each week,
tonight.
yeah, right.
I don't know how to tell those stories any shorter.
That was a good story. I didn't know that one.
So back to what we were just mentioning. We're talking about the Beach Boys, and you had it up there. A little bit about your influences musically. Yeah.
Okay, well, my parents weren't like amazing record collectors. Like they didn't have a wide range of stuff they listened to. We listened to, hi Kent, I see you. Hi Greg. Was so much James Taylor, so much Beatles. Big long run I remember of Simon and Garfunkel. That kind of stuff was what my mom was like way into Spyro Gyra and the Pointer Sisters and Jefferson Starship.
Oh wow, I haven't heard about the Pointer Sisters in forever.
Oh my God. My mom had an Econoline van, and it was like a fancy van at the time. It had bucket seats and interior lighting and a CB radio, and man, would we rock out in the van to Jefferson Starship and what's the We Are Family? What band is that? Anyway,
I should know that.
Don't get us
but so my mom was the oldest of 8, and was a classical pianist, and so was her mother, and all of them could sing, and many of them could play instruments, and everybody lived in Houston, and I have 18 first cousins on that side of the family, or no, including there are 18 grandchildren, so we got together all the time, and every family gathering, it's not just Christmas and Thanksgiving, it was so-and-so's birthday or Easter or Mother's Day or New Year's Day to make black eyed peas. All the time everybody got together, and it would always end in my grandmother's big old living room with everybody playing music. Mostly a few key people could play piano, my grandmother, my cousin Brian, and then my uncle Brian was the main leader of it all with his guitar. And so we had kind of our greatest hits of what the family knew how to sing, and a lot of 4-part harmony. So it would be everything from like show tunes to all the folk classics and let me see, Sister Sledge. Thanks, Ken. So I remember you remember that song from My Fair Lady. Light a rose, I'm home again, rose without a sweetheart to my name. We had that, all the parts. Not just was that Light a Rose part, 3-part harmony, and then there'd be the guy's part, the girl's part, the harmony on all of it, the interweaving, sing a song, sing a la da 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 da. And, it'd be 30 people, or 20 at least.
Oh, that sounds great.
That's how I thought everybody could sing. I really, really, really thought I thought it was the most natural thing in the world. And we did it so much as a family. I didn't listen to any jazz growing up. My parents.
Anybody else sing like you do?
Oh yeah, they can all sing,
I mean,
but not like
for a living?
professionally. My aunt was a musical theater actress for a while, and my uncle did a lot of touring, and another aunt was in a country band for a while. But nobody ever went as far with it as I did. What's the question?
It's just a comment, but
It might be delayed on my computer compared to what you're seeing. Last one I see is from Ken Gray.
Steve John had a comment.
he sat in the Pointer Sisters limo driving from Dallas, where he was in the university, and he was on the student activity board. It's pretty cool.
Pointer Sisters. Those were good times. So I didn't listen to any jazz growing up. Nobody in my family did. The closest thing I knew to jazz was the show tunes, like from Porgy and Bess, or the ones that became there are a lot of what we call jazz standards that came from show tunes. But it wasn't until I was 18 and I got to college that I started to learn anything about jazz. Yeah.
So let's start wrapping it up.
Okay, so we're wrapping it up.
So, one of the things I was just going to mention is anyone who listens to this, obviously we have some people watching live, but someone comes back and watches it, make some comments, give us some suggestions for the future, doing this, porch side.
We're just trying
chat.
to connect.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to keep the dream alive and stay connected and keep an interest in our band playing music on Tuesdays. And
We'd like to get to know everybody that's watching.
well, that's been a lot of some people say on the live stream, like, don't talk so much, because just play the music. And some people are like, oh, we really, really like hearing you talk, or tell stories, or we want to know more. And so that's why we were doing this, because there's a little more to know.
Yeah.
So
and everybody can feel free to, ask you questions every week, right?
Yeah.
Ask you any questions. We can.
There's
send in
probably
questions.
hardly a single question anyone could ask that I wouldn't answer honestly, because I'm such an open and honest person.
Those of us that know you would know that is very true. So everybody ask whatever you want.
And you'll probably get an answer.
Probably.
So Sundays, 8 p.m. We'll do this again next week.
Yeah, maybe bring other people to talk to.
And it doesn't have to be about music. It can be about anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.